Hi folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, this week we're talking about gear. And so I want to talk about some other tips that I have for you that you should be aware of. And we talk all the time about the increasing cost of baits and so forth. And I know, and you don't want to hear that all the time, but it's a factor because, you know, fishing is becoming more and more expensive. So how can you protect that gear? And one of the ways that you can protect it around here where we fish, where there's muskies and northern pike. And for most of us, northern pike is more of what we're talking about right now. Because no matter what lure you throw out there, if you're at the right time of day and when they're really feeding, you have a tremendous chance of having a northern pike bite you, whatever you're using. So I highly recommend that you use a wire leader. Now, most of you will think, oh gosh, if I put a wire leader on and I'm fishing for bass, then those fish aren't going to hit it. They're going to see that wire leader and they're going to avoid whatever I put on there, whatever lure I put on. That may or may not be true, but in the early part of the season, when northern pike season is open and walleye season is open and bass season isn't, well, the bass don't know that anything about this, and most people kind of maybe aren't aware of it either. But you're going to no matter what you do, you're going to catch bass. And whatever lures you do use for bass, they're going to be even more expensive than the soft plastic. So you can't just throw your tackle away. If you use wire leaders, it's going to protect it so you can catch that northern, take the hook out, throw it back, and you still have your lure to keep fishing for bass. This is really an important tip, and I can tell you, my buddy Russ Deddy and I fish together all the time, and Russ always has a wire leader on, no matter where we go, and because he doesn't think it affects the fish that much at all, and he's not wanting to throw his lures away. But when we're fishing together, honestly, I can tell you that most of the time, we each catch about the same number of fish. Some days one person's hot and the other isn't. We can joke around about it. But really, he catches every bit as many fish as I do, no matter where we go and when we're going, and he's always got a wire leader on. So I think you should consider that. The other thing that I think is important that you understand is if you don't want that wire leader, and I'm going to go along with most of you, I still don't go along with what Russ does. I try to make my baits look as natural as possible because I think that makes a difference whether the fish are going to hit it. So you obviously, if you're not using a wire leader and you're using braid, let's say, still you don't want to tie the hook onto the braid. Number one, it's not as strong as you might think. It's very abrasion susceptible. But if you use fluorocarbon leader, fluorocarbon is supposedly almost invisible to fish, especially in the clear waters that we have in our area. So you have to decide, how heavy a fluorocarbon do I need? The lighter the pound test is, the thinner it's going to be, and supposedly more invisible to the fish, and especially if you're fishing early season for trout or other fish that really have good visibility, have good eyesight, and they can see tiny little differences in patterns. So using the right weight fluorocarbon is critical. The advantage of fluorocarbon line is, number one, you can't see it. The fish can't see it. And number two, it's really abrasion resistant, so that's a good thing. Now, you also could use monofilament. And why is there a choice between monofilament and fluorocarbon? And this is important to realize. Fluorocarbon sinks. Monofilament basically floats. So if you're using something that you don't want to sink down very much, then maybe monofilament is the choice because it won't. It allows whatever lure you use, it's going to look different depending on which of those leaders you select. So again, maybe you don't want to get too technical and you want to just put something on and fish. And I understand that. But these are differences that are important for you to know about, and I think it can make a difference. The other thing that I think is really critical when we talk about this is for you to know that line, no matter what you use, breaks down. The rays of the sun can have a huge effect on any of the lines you use. And so just because your reel still has line on it as the new season starts, doesn't mean you should go out and use it. It's not the same line as it was a year ago. The sun really affects its strength. Another thing to look at if you're using braided line is you can see where some of the fibers, and this depends on the brand that you select. And a lot of times in advance, you don't know how this is going to act. But a lot of times you can see it, almost the fibers that make up the braid start separating. And the braid has a total different feel. And it wasn't intended to be this way. So it's important that you inspect your line, and to be really safe, put new line on, because the line is between you and the fish. It's critical. So this is something that I think you should be aware of. Monofilament really breaks down. If you leave it in your car and the sun rays come in there, they can just destroy that mono. It's critical with monofilament. So again, a lot of people don't do this. They take their line for granted and they start the new year. Another tip that I do want you to be aware of, you have, let's say you're fishing with spinning reels. And in today's world, you can buy spinning reels that cost over $500. And yes, people buy them. And yes, they feel they're getting a much better reel, and they are. But does it make that much difference between that and a $50 reel? I'm telling you, I fish primarily with $50 reels or less. And as long as you take care of them, and this is critical, as long as you really treat them with respect, I guess that's the best way to put it. I've seen so many people that just lay their rods and reels down on the ground. And that ground may have sand or dirt or mud or all kinds of things. And that gets in your reel. Those parts inside the reel are critical to keep them clean, to keep them unsoiled by all these other contaminants, and it can make a big difference. So no, I'm not a proponent. As a kid, oh my gosh, if I'd had $500 and could buy a reel, I would have done it. I wanted the very best that was made. That somehow drove me forward, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But between 500 and 50, there's a big difference, and I don't recommend spending all that money. I think all these things are important. A lot of times we really don't think that much about some of the things I'm talking about with these tips for your gear. But I'll tell you, if you do, it will make a big difference. And it could make the difference when you catch a really trophy-sized fish of whether you landed or not. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.